First of all, I just want to say, this is actually the first time I've seen this put together. This is a world premiere, so I hope you guys dug that. Because we literally finished the DI and the mix 2 days ago, and I'd never seen it put together, and if you like shit blowing up, we have a lot of that. What we also have a lot of are very attractive, incredibly talented women, and I would love to introduce the very wonderful Carla Gugino right now, please. Oh yeah. And the equally wonderful, talented, and beautiful Alexandra Daddario. Now I'm done talking and they get to talk. Fantastic.
Hey guys.
Obviously, we hear about these things, we look at the state of technical effects now, and people assume computers do everything. But a film like this, there's going to be an enormous physical component as well. Can you talk about just the physical side of shooting something like this?
Sure. You know, we had a saying on the movie, which was, you know, let's build the ride and put the actors on it. And it's super complex to do a movie like this. One of the things for me is just making it as real as possible so that they can experience it. So they can just get in there and do it. And a lot of times you'll say to the crew, okay, we gotta flip a car, and they're like, we're not sure how to do this. And I'm like, I don't care if we're not sure how to do this. We gotta figure this out. Because it's gotta be legit. It has to be really real. And you know, I knew we were gonna have a lot of spectacle, and I knew the movie was gonna be massive, but the most important thing for me was like the honest portrayal, like what these people go through. And you know, so I was, let's get it in camera. Let's get as much of it in camera as we can. Obviously, we blow a lot of stuff up, and there's a lot of visual effects, but when you see it in camera and you know it's real, and you see the reactions from people, there's no doubt. And as a director, you're like, we have it. This is raw, this is honest, this is fantastic, and so that's what it was like. I wanted as much in camera as I could get.
And then for you guys, the experience of when you sign on to this, are you fully aware of everything that it's going to entail before you get to the end?
I mean, I would say that when I read the script the first time, I was really taken with how huge I realized it was going to be, and how sort of epic is actually an appropriate word for this movie. Huh? I can't hear you. Sorry, man. But basically, what really took me into the script was the emotion and the kind of raw nature of these characters, and everything was very stripped down. And so when I first talked to Brad, the first time we spoke, I said, you know, are you going to want this? Do you want this kind of level of emotion in the midst of this huge action movie? Are you going for that, or am I imagining it? And he was like, no, that's what we're going for. And so it was true. I did more stunts than I've ever done in anything, and did a lot of training for them, and tried to do every stunt they would let me do. And I know that Alex, you know, you did a ton of underwater work, and so it did feel very much like in this movie we got to do, especially for a movie where you do a lot on green screen and stuff like that, we got to really react into real circumstances very often, and you don't get that much in this kind of movie as an actor. And Brad was constantly, which I think is what makes this movie really special when you're watching it too, and you feel incredibly engaged, is it was always about, every piece of artifice was taken away in terms of any kind of character reaction. So you really are, you know, this is a movie about a family under attack, and it's not dinosaurs, it's not monsters, it's not aliens.
I tried to put dinosaurs and monsters.
Well, there's a dinosaur later on.
Yeah, they're like next movie.
If you look really
no dinosaurs.
hard.
No dinosaurs. It's funny because the first time, you know, Paul Giamatti wasn't ready to shoot for a week, but he came down to Australia. We shot in Australia, and he came in on the scene where you were trapped in the car. And he walked in, and he turned to me and goes, where are all the green screens? And I was like, there aren't going to be any green screens. And he's like, okay, I got to go to the gym. And I was like, yeah, you might want to do a little cardio before you come on set. I mean, I jokingly always say I have a little bit of Canadian guilt, which is just like, I'm sorry, Carla, but we need to do it again. I have to drop you 4 more times. You know?
That's true.
There's something great. Oh, sorry, go ahead. There's something great about being able to actually experience what the character's actually going through, because, you know, if you need to be terrified or feel like you're drowning or suffocating or injured, it actually helps you know, in the development of the character to actually sort of experience that to the degree that you can. And I think it makes it more realistic on screen.
Sure.
And it was a lot of fun to do that, whether that's sort of sadomasochistic or not.
You also benefit from one of the best special effects in Hollywood now, The Rock.
Well said. Well said. I think Johnson is one of the best special effects in Hollywood.
One of the things that makes Dwayne great is that when he does these things, there are very few people I've ever seen work harder on a film set and give more. Can you talk about what he brought to this? Because for him, when you talk about the emotional side of this, it sounds like something that's new territory for him, and that he hasn't pushed himself necessarily to do before.
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky having worked with Dwayne before. So there was a level of trust there that you rarely kind of get so quickly. Like, I feel like I earned everyone's trust as we went through the process. Dwayne and I had already done this once all the way through. There was a couple amazing conversations I had with Dwayne early on in where there was a scene where someone dies, and I was like, listen, there's going to be a moment in the scene where you're going to need to say a prayer, or say something like a prayer. Like, not, it doesn't have to be religious specific. I want you to start thinking about what that is now. I never want you to tell anyone what it is. I never want to know what it is. And off that conversation, you could see he was like, oh, we're going into some deep territory here, aren't we? And it was kind of like I wanted to peel it back. I didn't want any artifice. I wanted like as much honesty as I could get out of Dwayne. And the other great thing is that you guys have worked together before. So instantly, it was amazing because instantly, you know, it's like a fractured family. But there's this, you can tell there was like this backstory between you guys because you were familiar and there was like a lot of trust there. So I ended up having this amazing set where everyone was game, everyone wanted to just make the best movie possible, but there was trust and there was a lot of communication about what had happened before, what they were going to go through, which was, you know, a rare situation. And I'm so excited because, you know, everybody is amazing in the movie, and it's hard to keep big action and have emotional value to big action, because sometimes it can just get kind of like overwhelmingly just visual or whatever. But I think this is the best I've ever seen Dwayne.
As somebody who was here for the Northridge quake, and that was such a visceral experience and one of those things that you never forget after you've been through it, what research did you do to talk about how far the San Andreas fault could go, how bad things could get, and then how closely did you stick to the truth?
Well, we did a lot of research in terms of talking to people, UCLA, Caltech, like real people. We had Tom Jordan come by, and I sat with him and the writers a number of times, and basically what we asked was, here's the script, is this all possible? What are the circumstances in which this could happen? Do I have, you know, just minor stuff like, are all the fault lines correct? Is this how you really, you know, kind of measure amplitude? You know, all the technical stuff, is this all correct? And we kept tabs on that. I remember, like a week before we were shooting, they had developed a new way of measuring earthquakes. We had to change all the dialogue, and like 4 or 5 scenes, like, you know, last thing I need is like all the dialogue changing like a week before we shoot it. But we were trying to stay on top of it. What the real question is what's the worst case scenario? Like, I mean, literally, if this fault line, because a lot of these fault lines are connected, if this fault line went, and there's one, literally, it's called the Puente Hills fault line, it goes right through downtown LA. Right through downtown LA, where the very few skyscrapers are in LA, there's a fault line underneath them all. What a great idea. But anyway, they have this fault line going through downtown LA, and they kind of connect. And so it was like, if this one went, and then caused this one to go, what would happen at this point? And therefore, you know, this is the worst case scenario. So we tried to keep it, you know, obviously within the realm of plausibility. The Paul Giamatti character is speaking very real information. We try to ground it. Like, one of the things that was really shocking to me, and you see in the trailer, it says you'll feel it on the East Coast. Well, the largest earthquake in the world history in real life is like a 9.1, I believe, or a 9.5, I can't remember. But it happened in Chile. It caused a tsunami that leveled Hilo, Hawaii, 8,000 miles away. So when he says, if it's this big, which we do the biggest ever recorded, when he says you'll feel it on the East Coast, that's legit. You'd feel it on the East Coast. So, you know, we ground it as much as we can because you want everything to be kind of grounded. I think there's a little bit of liberty in terms of, could all of this happen at once? Very unlikely, but possible. And in my movie, very possible.
And then finally, for you two, what was the most demanding thing asked of you during this film? Was it a physical thing? Was it an emotional thing? What was the point where you just, this film pushed you?
I think that I like doing very physically active roles and playing these really tough characters that I've had the opportunity to play. And I think that anytime you make a movie, I think that there's always going to be something that's sort of, you know, there's always going to be a day that, you know, maybe you get a little bit too overwhelmed. You try to use that in the character, and you try to use that in your performance, I think. But I think that I mostly have a lot of fun. But I think that if you're very physically active and not getting a lot of sleep, you know, I think that you can have a rough day. But I think it's just all part of it, and you just try to use it.
And you're being very modest because we did dump a lot of water and sink a building around you.
In one of the biggest tanks in the world.
The biggest tank in the world.
Yeah.
I used to it was so cool because you just used to go and I would go and look underwater, and you'd have basically a whole crew setting up in.
Hopefully not peeing.
Yeah.
Definitely peeing. Definitely peeing. And they were setting up, you know, as if they were on land, but completely underwater, and it was just fascinating to watch. And I don't know if I'll ever have an opportunity to do something like that again. So it was just, it's kind of incredible to do that. And so it was more fun than anything, but you know, you can get tired and stuff like that. It can get exhausting, but it's all good.
I would say for me, definitely this character goes to a lot of places emotionally, which is challenging in some way, but also, you know, sort of, like I said, one of the things I love about this movie, that's kind of the surprise hidden weapon in there. But also I did do, and I had so much fun doing these stunts, and we had an incredible stunt team. And did a fair amount of wire work. I would say there is a point where my character drops several floors. And somehow I was determined, and we had the bright idea that it should be me. And when you see it, it is me. And I would say that there was a certain number of takes into that, because basically that's, you're hooked to wires, but I'm falling onto the ground and hitting it face first. And you have to hit it so that it looks real, but it has to be, so, you know, you can't break any bones and such, so they have to like give you a little bit of help so you hit it not too hard. But it's all human error, and what's so cool about our stunt team is they like to do a lot of things practical, and they are, like I said, amazing, so I trust these guys implicitly. But each one of them had one of my limbs on a wire. They each connected. So I was literally a marionette. So I had to stand and just go, okay, I'm falling flat, here I go. And if there was anything that was slightly off, it was. So that was the one time I would say that I thought, in the midst of it, because they said, you know, you're the actress who has done the most stunts that we worked with. So, you know, they gave me a little honorary stunt thing. Super cool.
You were like, why didn't you tell me that earlier?
But I thought, I was like, maybe I'm just really dumb. Like, maybe people said, no, it's because this isn't. But in the movie, you do feel it, and I think that's what, from like to your point.
Well, you see it.
Yeah.
You know, like Carla falls 4 stories, and you see it's Carla. Like, there's no doubt. We hit Alex with like 1 billion gallons of water, and you see it's Alex getting hit with it, which is amazing. You're in it, you know.
And I think that's the thing. I think, you know, the word challenge is an interesting one, because that's what's so exciting about anything worth its salt, is that it should be challenging. You should be pushing those limits. And in this movie, I feel like I can't think of a movie that has the elements that this movie has, and delivers in ways, really surprising ways, including the ways that you know it's going to deliver. So,
Brad, what day is this in theaters?
May 29th, sir. 2 days after my birthday. Best birthday present ever.
My gosh. And May 13th in theaters, it's Mad Max Fury Road. One last time, let's have a round of applause for our guest from San